Before we get into tonight's show, I want to give a quick shout out to Elite Mounts in Salina, Ohio. They make top-notch 100% American-made tool organization gear that fits just about any brand of handheld power tools, batteries, and chargers, along with other specialty mounts for your home workshop needs. You can check them out at elitemounts.com. And the guys over there were nice enough to offer a 10% discount for all my listeners. Just use the code Bigfoot10 at checkout. Enjoy the new episode format, thanks to Elite Mounts.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth's out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and bullets run amok.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methenkamp. On tonight's show, we have Amy from Southeast Ohio. Amy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Sean. Thank you very much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We met on Facebook, and I saw that you had an encounter, so I reached out to you and begged you to come on the show. We're not going to give out too many details as far as locations, but we're going to give generalizations.
Right.
But Amy, why don't you go ahead and tell us as little or as much as you want about yourself?
About myself. Well, okay. My name's Amy, and I am from Southeast Ohio originally, and I now live about 40 miles northwest of my hometown. I have a group that I run for about Sasquatch. It's Monroe County, Ohio Bigfoot Enthusiasts. If anybody in Monroe County, Ohio is listening and want to check us out, that's great, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to toot my own horn. This is
toot away. We're
definitely
good with
about it's definitely about Sasquatch and about the experiences that I've had, and I think that, you know, for a long time I really questioned to be honest, my sanity, and if I had really indeed had this encounter, and I really believe and know now that I did. And the reason why I know is because there were too many details that I was able to gather during the encounter that I would have never imagined or knew about their physical attributes and you know, what they look like. And then over the years, as I've listened to other encounters, you know, someone might say something about their hair, or someone might say something about their mouth, or the things that stood out to me. And I know now that I definitely did have an encounter. And there was a lot that led up to the encounter. It wasn't, I don't know how to say this, except I don't think it was kind of the normal encounter. It wasn't some side crossing. It wasn't, you know, that I walked up on one and surprised it. I really feel like this was, I don't know how to say this except that I was set up, and that there was a point to be made, and a point was made, definitely. So that's kind of like the summary of what happened.
Yeah, you said something earlier about, you know, questioning yourself, questioning whether the encounter really happened. And I think a lot of people go through that. I know with my own encounter or encounters, you know, there is that little bit of doubt
Oh,
that
definitely.
because we're
Yeah.
told that this stuff doesn't exist. And when it's in your face, you do question your sanity a little bit. So we were talking a little bit beforehand, and you said there was some stuff that led up to the encounter. Would you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So probably around 2013, I really started getting into the Bigfoot phenomenon, and I went to my very first conference, and one of the people that spoke there was the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. One of the people that spoke there was John Myatinsky. I don't know if you're familiar with John. He is he's not a forest ranger, but I think he's a biologist, and that he was studying mountain goats, and he had an experience while studying mountain goats, which led him to start looking into the Bigfoot phenomenon. So anyway, I listened to him, and one of the things he talked about was how a grizzly bear will, when it kills a deer or an animal or something, that it will really let that meat just, let the flies get on it, and it's really after the insects more than it is the meat. So I thought, well, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. So
I honestly did not know that either. Learning
yeah, he
something new
said
every
that.
day.
I mean, they will drag it onto like a rock that lays in the sun, and they'll just kind of let that meat tenderize in the sun, or basically cook, and they'll let all the bugs get to it and stuff, and then that's when it, oftentimes I think that's why people get in trouble, because you may have a kill somewhere near where you're hiking, and it's gonna protect that kill, even though it's not ready to eat it yet. So I didn't know that. So I had been hiking along the Ohio River with my dogs almost every day. I did that. Or there was a park on the opposite side of town, away from the river, that I would go to. Those were the two places I could take my dogs and let them run freely and get exercise. And so walking along this really unkept trail was not maintained. And there was some high grass, and in the middle of this high grass, it was almost like a bowl of high grass that had been laid down. And in the middle of this high grass was a dead deer. And my dogs ran up to it, but as soon as they got up to it, they turned around and ran away. I thought, well, that's interesting. So when I started to look at this deer, and I didn't get very close to it, but I thought that it had been decapitated, but it wasn't. It had, the neck had been broken. It was laying on the back of the deer, and one leg, and I think it was the left rear leg, was completely gone, missing.
Really?
So, yeah, so I thought, wow, that's really, what the heck, I'm thinking, is this a coyote kill, or, I really thought this is really interesting. And so I went down the next day or two. I don't remember how much time passed, but I went down, and I can only assume it was the bones of this deer were stacked, and it was almost like a three-sided box. It was the strangest thing. It was like Lincoln logs, they were just all stacked up. And I thought, wow, this is really weird. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe there's something down here, So the next day I come home from work, and I had bought a sand bucket that had a lid. And in the sand bucket, I put Ritz crackers and honey and peanut butter. I melted over them. Don't ask me why I did that, chose that, but I did. took the lid and I taped it down with duct tape real well and took it down to the river, and I hung it on a branch that if a raccoon had gotten it, the branch would have broken. The branch was almost dead, I think. So next day, a couple days later, I went down and the bucket is gone. The lid is there, but the bucket is gone. And that'll come into play later. And so this was probably fall time, in the fall, maybe. And I looked for that bucket all winter long. You know, it was orange, so I thought, well, maybe in the snow it'll show up. I mean, I didn't go searching for it, but as I walked on these trails, I would look for this bucket. I never did find it. So, in the meantime, I also went up to a park that was across town, and I would walk my dogs up there, and I found this well that was just partially filled in. It wasn't filled in, so I couldn't touch the bottom by reaching down on my knees, and I couldn't touch the bottom, but I could sit a bucket in there. So I started putting more buckets out. And it wasn't a daily thing, but probably once a week, twice a week, I would stick a bucket with crackers and peanut butter and honey. And I would come back a couple days later and the buckets would be gone. And so I thought, wow, this is really cool. But of course, you know, it could have been a raccoon. It could have been, you know. So I went up there one night, and I think it's also important when a witness can say that they had something personal going on in their lives, because a lot of times, for whatever reason, people have these experiences when they're going through some kind of trauma in their lives or some kind of, you know, emotional thing that they're going through. And I was indeed going through a very emotional time in my life. And I had gone up there, and it was late at night. And if I'm boring you, John, please let me know.
No. You're fine. You're doing great. That
so
I'm just
I had gone up
listening
there,
and taking notes.
I had gone up there late at night, and it was I don't know, it was 7:30, and it was December, and you know, there was a lot of drama going on in the family, and it just a really difficult time. And I was on the phone with somebody, and I was crying. I was very upset. And I'm walking around this park that it's basically just a huge hill is what this park is, and it had a road that kind of spiraled around it. Now, the road had long been, it wasn't suitable to travel, you know, take a car on or anything, but you could walk the road. And a lot of trees, a lot of very old trees. And so I'm walking around this hill, and I'm crying, and my dogs are, you know, just kind of running here and there, and you know, it got to be about 9 o'clock, and it was dark. And so I get off the phone, and I head out to where the exit of the park is, and I bend down to get, I always put my dogs on the leash before we leave the park. And I bend down, and something, I don't have any idea what or how, I was hit in the head, and I had my hood up. And I was hit in the head by a stick. I could only assume it was a stick because there was a broken stick laying at my feet afterwards. And it hit me so hard that it stung. It left a welt on my cheek.
Holy cow.
And
hang on just a second. Were there the area that you were doing this in, were there like trees? Like, were you underneath trees at that point?
Yes, there was a tree underneath me, but this hit me from the side. It came from the
Oh,
side.
wow.
Whatever it was, it came from the side and it hit the side of my face. And it stung. I mean, I just immediately fight or flight kicked in, and I was out of it. I was, running, and I'm not a small athletic person. I will tell you that.
I resemble that remark.
Oh yeah, I'm not, not very athletic. So I got to the top of the hill there where, if I go over the hill, I'm exiting the park. And I turn around and I said, if you're here, I need to know. I need to know what's going on, And I kind of walk back down to where I'm standing, and there's just one stick. It was probably, I would say, an inch in diameter maybe, but if it was them that threw it, and there was definitely places where they could have been, hiding behind a tree or whatever, but if it was them that threw it, I can tell you their aim is excellent, because I don't think it was meant to hurt me. It certainly wasn't meant to injure me, but it was meant to get me out of there, because there are tons of white-tailed deer up in this area. So I can only speculate.
Maybe, hang on just a second.
Go ahead.
Maybe I missed this. When you got hit with the stick, was that at the park, or was that near where the kill site was?
No, that was at this park. I
Okay.
was up in this park. Yeah, I was up in this park at that time. I apologize.
No,
because there were two
I've been
different
taking
areas.
notes, and I just may have missed it.
Yeah, there were two different areas that I was going to.
Gotcha.
So
and you were gifting at both sites, correct?
I was gifting at both sites, yeah, but I really normally most of the time was only gifting at this hillside park, because it would get so dark and so scary down by the river. I was afraid to go down there, and then by the time I would get home from work, and it might be 6, 7 o'clock before I would get out with my dog, so I would go up to this other park. Most of the gifting went on from there. So I was I just didn't know what to think. I really didn't. To this day, I mean, I'll never know if, maybe there wasn't a branch that like kind of swung down. There was no part of the canopy that was there. So I really can't say what happened, but I know that I turned around and I said, if you're here, I need to know. So the next day I get home from work, and today I'm going in. I'm going, as soon as I get home. And it was it was Christmas Eve, I believe. And I go in, and in this park, on this hillside park, the city would dump, all kinds of stuff. Sand, gravel, whatever, the bricks, and somebody had dumped a pile of mulch in this. There was a pile of mulch there. And I really hadn't paid attention that there was mulch there, but so I'm walking back in, and I look over at that mulch, and there was one footprint in there.
Really?
And I don't know if you know about mulch, but you know how when mulch has been sat for a while and compacted, it's hard.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was very deep. If you'd like, I can send you a picture of it. I definitely have a picture of it, and I can send that to you.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to see that. And we're
And I
talking,
was like, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, I was so nervous, and I had never done any casting or anything like that. I didn't know how to do that, so I just stood there. I was so nervous, so scared. I think I just started shaking, and yeah, I left. I just left. I was just scared to death.
so
So
let's
I
talk
think
about
that,
this. Let's talk about this
okay, go
footprint for a
ahead.
second before we move
hmm
on. How big was it?
I would say that it was probably, like, I was completely unprepared. So I would say it was probably about anywhere from 12 to 14 inches long.
Okay.
It wasn't super big, but it was the width. It was very wide.
And being in mulch, you probably couldn't make out any details of like toes or anything like that,
Not
right?
much, there wasn't much, detail of toes. And you know what? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it wasn't a footprint, but it looked like a footprint to me.
Right.
And I psyched myself out. I was, wow. I did forget to tell you that when I started putting these buckets up on this hillside park, I put a recorder in. And I did get a vocal of some kind. I don't know what it was. It was the strangest thing. It started out with, and there was really no water. There was a little stream, but, I put this recorder out, put it in a plastic bag, and I hung it on a tree because I did not want to trick them. I didn't want to hide it, didn't want to, because I'll tell you what happened when I did do that. So I did get somewhat of a vocal. It was really weird. It sounded like, I'm going to try to make these sounds, John, so I'm going to sound ridiculous, but first it was like a, ooh, and you could hear something like scampering away. And then it sounded like rushing water. I have no idea where that sound came from.
Do you
And
still have that
generally,
recording?
well, I'll tell you what happened.
Oh,
So,
okay. Sorry.
yeah, not good. So then it sounded like, a fire crackling. Like it's what it sounded like. Now I wonder if something wasn't like peeing on the baggie.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And then there
Maybe
was this,
Bigfoot got mad and was taking a leak on your recorder.
oh yeah, I don't think they were happy. So it was a very low growl. Just very low growl. And I'm like, oh my God. And I've had some friends listen to it and stuff, and they were like, we don't know. And put it back out, see what happens. So I go back out with my recorder, and it's starting to rain. It's just misting, kind of, but it's starting to rain. And I thought, oh man, I don't want my recorder to get wet. I don't. So I put it in a log. When I came back, now raccoons they're attracted to batteries because there's a sweet smell to them. So it could have been raccoons, but I tell you what, I had a hard time getting the battery compartment off of this recorder. But the battery compartment was off of it. It was laying outside of the log. The battery compartment was out of it, and the batteries were out of it. And it was fried.
Really?
I still have the recorder. Yes. I still have the recorder, and I'm always, once in a while, I'll ask somebody that I know is real techie, do you think you could fix a digital recorder? Because this was just a digital recorder. That's all it was. It was a recorder that my daughter used in college for notes.
Okay.
So, no, do I have the recording? No. Do I have the recorder? I do. I still have the recorder. So, I told you I was going through some traumatic stuff, and And I um, my husband and I had separated, and it was very hard. It was a very difficult time. And, uh, I would say that probably a couple years went by, of this, on and off. And so
A couple of years of you doing the buckets and stuff like
yeah,
that?
doing the buckets
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, but it wasn't something that was like I didn't have a schedule. I might do it one week and then, I didn't do it. It wasn't,
Wasn't regular?
right. Yeah, it wasn't regular or predictable even really. So I started dating a guy and I went there less and less. And, when I saw the footprint, that really did something to me. And I think I backed off a lot. That just did it for me. That really scared me.
Not going to lie, it would
And
scare me too.
yeah, it really scared me. So I think at that time I backed off a lot. And so I started dating this guy, and he kind of lived far away. So on the weekends after work, I would go to his house, and I would come home on Sunday, and there would be some different things that were really strange. Like for instance, I had a fence around my yard, and the trash cans would be thrown inside the fence. You normally sit outside the fence and they would be thrown in the middle of the yard.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I don't know. I just really never thought about it. I came home one time and I had a birdhouse set up on probably about a 6-foot pole, and it was completely broken off and it was thrown in the middle of the yard. And
Really?
I thought, that's when I'm like, that's really weird. But the worst times when I come home and my screen door was twisted off the hinges. Just pretty much, it was just hanging there. But I blamed it all on
Wait. You're,
yeah.
okay. You're, like, it wasn't like the wind took it and bent it back. You're saying it was twisted?
All I can say is the door was twisted. If you know what I mean, it was still on the hinges, but it was twisted. So
Oh, wow.
it could have been the wind. It could have definitely been the wind.
Well, normally when the wind takes a door, was it like, did it look like it was like pulled from the top or
it looked
was
like
it just bent
something
backwards?
it looked like something had grabbed it from the top in the bottom and pushed in on the top. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
And kind of just like wrung it,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think the wind would have done that. That sounds more like you would almost have to, kick the bottom, by holding on to the top or something like that.
Right. I didn't. I think in my mind I wanted this to be this isn't happening, and I just would not. I just wouldn't accept it, and so one night, and this all happened within a couple weeks. This leading up to this, it was February, and I was in bed and I was on the phone with this guy that I'm dating, and something hit the side of my house, and it sounded like, I thought that a support beam had come down. I ran down the basement and I'm like looking all around because I really did think that a beam had fallen. And it was right above my head. I was laying on the bed and it was right above my head. And, I was telling Mark, I'm like, there's, something happened. I got to find out what it was. And so I'm like, hung up, and I'm like looking all over the house. So finally I'm like, took a deep breath. I'm like, I guess I got to go outside. So I went outside, and there was nothing. There was nothing.
And
There
I'm
was
going to
no,
tell you something. If I heard that, with everything else that's going on, yeah, I'm just going to say it. That's pretty ballsy walking outside. This was at night, correct?
right. Yeah, it was at
Oh,
night. Well, I
wow.
didn't go out and go around my porch or anything. I did that the next day, but I just
Okay.
stood on the porch and kind of looked down the side of the house, and I'm like, we had 2 huge pine trees in our backyard. Huge. And I just got the feeling that there was something in this. I just got the feeling I was being watched. Now, I want you to know, John, that this is a neighborhood. This is a neighborhood. I have houses on both sides of me.
Really?
Yes.
But how far are you away from like a wooded area or the
Yeah, I
river?
was only about a block.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
about a city block from the woods. And these woods that I'm talking about in this hillside park is all connected. These woods run for miles from one town to the next little town to the next little town. So they
Typical
go,
Southeast Ohio.
yeah,
Yeah.
southeast. So anyway, so I am laying in bed. I have 2 dogs. I have a German Shepherd, and I have an Akita. And
So not small dogs.
no, not small dogs, no. So, I'm in bed that night after the big whack on the side of the house, and I wake up because my dogs have jumped off the bed and they're trying to get under the bed. And I'm like, what? And then I heard tapping on my window. It was like somebody with nails was drumming, like on my window. You know how if you drum your fingers on a desk or something,
Yeah.
something was drumming. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. I can't look at, And I was up for the rest of the night. That was it. So I and it had snowed that night. It was just a light snow, but it had snowed. So I go to work. I go out my front door. I get in my car. I go to work, and that's important. Why I say that. I come back that night, and I am getting ready to let my dogs out the back door, the fenced-in yard, and my neighbor comes around and comes in the gate, and he says, Amy, somebody was in my backyard last night. And I said, oh, really? And he said, and they were in there bare feet, and they were effing huge, is what he said.
Holy cow.
And he said, and it was going right to your window, and and I knew that it scared him because his little daughter's window is right pretty much across from my window. So they never came in the fence. Whoever it was just leaned over the fence and was able, now it's still a pretty good stretch,
How tall is the fence?
it's like 4 feet. It was like a 4-foot fence just to
Yeah,
keep my
but
dogs in the
I
yard.
mean, I wouldn't be able to reach
No, I know.
more than
I
an
know.
arm's
So,
length.
right. And so he didn't say there were any tracks in my yard. He only said they were in his yard because when he said that, I immediately thought he was making fun of me. I thought he had found out that I was into Sasquatch and he was making fun of me, and so I slammed the door in his face. And I thought, oh, you've been doing all this to me. Doug's gone, my ex-husband's gone, I'm here alone, and, I had no reason for him to do that. But I was sure that he was the one that was responsible for the garbage cans being in there and, the birdhouse being thrown in the middle of the yard and, all the stuff that had happened up to then. And I was just so upset, and this is the day of the encounter. So I get my dogs and I head down to the river. And if you go across these railroad tracks, first of all, if you look at this place, there is an old casket factory down there along the river that is been shut down for decades, and it's all grown up. There's trees growing up around it, and weeds and just scrub brush. And I go and if you go across these railroad tracks, then if you go to the left, you can go down to the water's edge. There's a trail a road actually that goes down to this marina. And I started to walk down that way, and I got the biggest, uncomfortable chill.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right, So I turned around and I went down to the other path. There was another path that led down this trail that was not kept. Now, mind you, the first thing you have to do is go past, I don't know, 4 baseball fields. This is where kids play. Hundreds of kids play baseball every year. My grandchildren play there. So I'm actually in like a baseball park. And I'm walking down. It starts out as like a bike trail. So it's got not cement, but I can't think of it.
Like concrete?
Well, it wasn't in the asphalt. So it was like asphalt,
okay.
And so started walking down there, and this is another place where the city just dumps, dirt and so there was about a pile of rubbish, of whatever, and it was a mound. It was huge, okay? And it's to my right, and I'm walking along, and all of a sudden, behind me, my right shoulder, that seemed to be coming from where this casket factory is, there's just a big commotion. It sounds like limbs breaking and just something's going on over there. And I'm turning to my right and I'm looking back there. And so I'm like, what the heck, And so I turn around to go back to the trail to continue walking, and I see hair. That's how I always describe it. I just see hair. And I'm like, what am I looking at? And I would say that my vision was around his midsection, lower midsection, because I saw his hands. He had mud and dirt caked in, like on his left side, not on the right side, only on the left. And he was standing at an angle from me. He wasn't on the trail. He was on the right of the trail. But he was kind of standing at an angle. And so I just kept looking up and up. And when I got to the face, it was clear that he was not happy with me. The mouth is unbelievably large. No, there's no way for me to describe, to help somebody understand the size of these things. The mouth was in fact, I heard somebody describe it in a podcast not long ago that the mouth reminded him of Animal on the Muppets, and I'm like, yeah, that's very true. That the mouth was turned down in a frown. He was frowning at me. Never opened his mouth. I never saw any teeth. He never made any sound. But his mouth was turned down in a frown, and it was obvious that he was not happy and so John, I'm going to tell you this, and your listeners, it's part of what happened, and I can't leave it out. The encounter only lasted probably maybe 3 seconds. I don't know, but not long. And it was if somebody shot this thought. That's how I describe it. Somebody shot this thought into my head. And I said, why are you doing this? And at that moment, you got to understand that I was like paralyzed, really, And at that moment, there was another huge commotion behind my right shoulder. And this is where some people have said, this can't be true because nobody would have taken their eyes off of this thing. But in my mind, there was another one coming behind me.
Right.
And, I'm like looking, I don't see anything. I don't even see any brush moving or anything, but I'm hearing this, go on. And when I turned around, he was gone. Just gone. I have no idea. And I basically walked backwards to my Jeep, to my car where my dogs were at my Jeep. The whole time I had no idea or even a thought about my dogs, which is terrible. But I didn't even think about, were they okay? Were they getting nothing?
So they took off. They took off during all this.
They took off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they took off. And so, basically that was what happened.
Wow.
And there's so much that has transpired through this. I think that when we receive this mind speak, and stop me if you want me to stop, because I can just go on and
I have
on.
a ton of questions, but I want you to continue.
Well, why don't you go ahead and ask me your questions, because the next part is simply what I think the message was to me.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. So we're going to go way back here a little bit.
Okay.
The kill site, when you saw the deer, you talk about the broken neck, and
right.
You said the leg was missing?
There was a leg missing. In fact, when I first saw it, I thought it was decapitated.
Okay.
But that's when I realized, oh my gosh, no, its head was laying on its back.
That's how a lot of predators hunt. They will grab the back leg as it's running, and then you do hear about Sasquatch encounters where these deer, they have their necks broken. So
right.
Yeah. And so then you had the bucket that was taped shut. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
And you only found the lid.
That's right. I only found the lid. Mhm.
Was the tape still on the lid?
There was tape still on the lid, and it just looked like something had, the lid was not broke. It almost looked like something had taken its claws or whatever and clawed the tape away. I'm sure that some of the tape was still on the bucket.
Okay.
Because it was almost like it wasn't cut with scissors or anything, but basically it had just, I don't know
Like
if you know
rip.
how you take your fingernail and go, right, it was like ripped.
Okay. Okay. Um, and then maybe I missed this because sometimes I
That's
do miss
okay.
this. Um, so you said when you saw the creature,
hmm
that all you saw was hair. How close were you to this thing?
So I was about, my guesstimate, and it's only a guess, I've gone down there many times. My guesstimate is about 30 feet.
That's pretty freaking close.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was a lot of detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you tell what color it was? This was at
Yes,
night, correct?
absolutely. It was just before dark. So
Okay.
it was not dark yet. No, I could tell. Yeah, it was an orangutan color. It was kind of reddish.
Okay.
And its skin, which you could see skin through the chest and through the stomach, in the face, of course. There was no hair on the face, just around the face, and the skin was, I don't know, I always describe it as a taupe. It was like it was kind of between a white and a tan. It was really light.
Okay. Would you
And it was very
say
weathered.
very weathered?
Yeah, very weathered. I think that it was old.
Okay.
And
Would you say that it looked human?
yes,
Okay. Except for
yeah,
maybe the
definitely
bigger mouth than normal.
definitely more human than it wasn't an ape, you know. Except for the mouth and the brow ridge. The brow
Okay.
ridge was really big.
What about the eyes? Were you able to make out any detail on the eyes?
What I remember, because I think I really paid attention to the mouth,
Yeah.
is that the eyes were almost light, like a light brown or
Okay.
like a honey kind of color. But the brow ridge was so big that it almost overshadowed the eyes, if you will. You know what
Wow.
I mean? Like a brim of a hat. I mean, it wasn't as big as the brim of a baseball hat, but it was pretty big.
Right. Right. Like you see the pictures of like the Neanderthal or the caveman.
Right, right.
Wow. And then you said that you turned around because you thought there might have been another one coming towards you.
Right.
Did you hear anything as the other one left?
No,
Okay.
I didn't hear anything.
Wow. Wow.
I never heard anything from him. I never smelled anything. And I never saw, like, any teeth. Yeah. But as far as, I mean, I feel like I got, one of the things that stood out to me, and if I'm overstepping your questions, I apologize.
No, the only other question I had was, um, how tall would you estimate this thing to be?
So again, it's a guesstimate, but I have 8-foot ceilings in my living room, in my house. And I would say it was every bit of that. When I look up to that, I don't know whether it's the position of my head when I look up, but I feel that he was probably about 8 foot.
Wow. Wow. And one more question. When you see like the Patterson Gimlin film, Patty was very like barrel shaped.
Yes,
Was this, what kind of body style did this creature have?
he was very barrel shaped.
Okay.
He was barrel chest, barrel belly, and he had a belly on him. And I think that's why I think he was old, because I just get the impression that he was old. And also, this is one thing that has stuck with me too. And some of these things people have said, and later on I've listened to witnesses, and they'll say, how big the mouth was or whatever. A couple other things that I saw when I turned around, the nail beds on his fingernails were black. And the
Oh, really?
nails, yeah, they were black. And the nails were like Albert Ostman said that the nails look like chisels. That's what they look like. They look like chisels.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The top of his head, I couldn't see the top of his head. Okay. But it looked like maybe it was either balding or it was all broke off. It almost looked like he had what is it when guys get their hair,
Like male pattern baldness?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it was like broke off. You could tell where it was broke off. But the back of the head, now I didn't see his behind but I could tell that like the rest of his hair was really long. And it just kind of came around and down his shoulders. I always say it looked like a cape.
I've heard that before.
That's one thing I've never heard, but I don't know if you probably don't know, but Salt Fork has a new echo center, and
Yeah.
one of the things they did was put in a Bigfoot, and the guy that made it, that's the way this thing's hair is, and
Oh, really?
yeah, that's the way. Yes, on this mannequin or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and it's not the same color, but the hair just seemed like it might have even been grown into. Do you understand what I mean? Like it just seemed like it was just part of the other hair on his shoulders and his.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So there wasn't a break from like the hair on the head to the hair on the body.
No, right.
Gotcha.
There was, yeah. So I would say the hair on his head was pretty long.
And then when you're the second person in a row that's talked about the mind speak, and that episode hasn't aired yet either. It will by the time your episode airs. But you said it was like this thought was placed in your mind.
Shot, yep.
Was it in your voice or in a different voice?
No, it was in a very deep voice.
Okay.
And that's why I just don't think it was. I've had several people say to me, "Don't you think you were saying to yourself, what the hell am I doing? What are you doing? You're crazy, or yeah." It wasn't like that. It was, and that's where like the kind of I'm sorry, I have trouble with my vocabulary.
No, you're doing fine.
Forget words, but afterwards, it's like, I've thought about this for years, and it was almost like, you have two siblings, and one sibling is picking on another sibling, but the older sibling knows they can't hit that sibling. And it's, why are you doing this to me? Why are you harassing me? And that's kind of what I feel he was saying to me. Not that he was, he wasn't, it wasn't, it was very firm. It wasn't like he was crying. He was, why are you doing this? And believe me, I've thought about that, and I have also thought that I think what might have been happening is that, I believe they probably live in a troop or live in a family unit, and just like all families, everybody should have a job. And I feel that he was saying to me, you are distracting my troop. You're distracting them. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
You think,
And
you mean like with the buckets and stuff?
yes, with buckets. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're distracting them.
Wow.
Now, that's just all speculation. I can't, but that's what I got from that over the years, And believe me, I ask myself that question all the time. Why are you doing this?
Do you still
And
put the buckets out?
oh no,
Okay.
no, no. Now I still am very much involved with Sasquatch. I started a group after I married and moved. I started a group in this county because it is so rural and so so much farmland and so rural. I thought, man, and I knew there had been a couple sightings here,
Yep.
so I started a group here. And I go to a place that you've probably heard of, Salt Fork State Park.
Yep.
And I have had many, many experiences there. I've never seen one there, but I have had many experiences there. Is it Sasquatch? I don't know. But I know that I've had some really strange experiences there.
Right. Have you ever heard of Tar Hollow State Park?
Yes, I have. Never been, but I'd love to.
Yeah, I had some experiences there with what I believe was Sasquatch.
Really?
Yeah. It's not too far from Hocking Hills, so we used to ride our horses from Tar Hollow Horseman's Camp to Hocking Hills Horseman's Camp and back in one day. So
wow.
that shows you how close it is. But we covered a lot of territory when we would do that. But there's a lot of activity down there too. So I know the area you're talking about.
Okay. You probably know Kane Michael then.
Name sounds familiar, but I am horrible with placing names with faces.
That's okay. He runs the House of Enoch. Yeah, I've been down to his place, and he definitely has activity on his property. So
I'll have to look that up.
can I ask you what kind of experiences you had? Would you mind telling me?
No, I heard back in, it was 80s, early 90s. I heard what I now know would be called the Ohio Howl.
Okay.
And then I had some other possible things that happened with the smells and the reactions from our horses.
Oh wow.
And,
okay.
And then I believe that I may have had one outside the horse trailer I was sleeping in. So, yeah.
Do you think that they are curious about the horses, and what do you think is going on there?
Well, you do hear about the encounters that people have. I mean, I've heard everything from, Sasquatch was braiding my horse's hair to,
right.
Watching the Sasquatch even petting horses or, things like that. But then you also hear on the other hand, the horses are afraid of the Sasquatch. So I think that knowing horses the way I do, I believe that just like with people, if they get comfortable with this humanoid creature, that they may allow it to come up and pet it or whatever. So I do think that the Sasquatch is curious about the horses.
Mm-hmm.
Just my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. Nobody is.
Well, nobody is. That's right. That's right. I mean, I have not I'm not familiar with horses, but I've heard,
Yeah.
that, the braiding of hair, and I've never heard about them petting them, but I have heard about them petting dogs. Now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what I wonder might be happening is, and I can tell you that with me, there was some paralysis going on. I mean,
Right.
I stood on my feet. I never did pass out or anything. But I wonder if those animals are just so frightened that the fight or flight doesn't kick in. They're just paralyzed. I don't know. You just wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a very good possibility. Well, Amy, we've been going for about an hour.
Yes.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap this up?
No, I will say this, is that, for a couple of years, I was I stopped camping, especially by myself, because I camp all the time by myself. I stopped camping by myself. I got really scared in the woods, you know, um, scared when I was by myself. And then, I started to realize that if that thing, if he wanted to kill me, he wouldn't have even had to. He could have just knocked my head off my shoulders, literally.
Right.
I think he was that close that he just reached out and just, although I don't think he he certainly wasn't happy with me. I think now it's really weird. Like I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not saying that I still go out. I don't really camp by myself much. Occasionally I will, but I even had stopped going to Salt Fork because I was just so scared. And then I don't know, it was like an awakening. It's like, they're not these horrible monsters that television wants us to believe they are. I think that you have to respect them. You give them their space. And you know what? It's crazy, when you get in an area where you think that they are, and you just set up a chair and just sit out there, they will come to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they are very curious,
Mm-hmm.
and if you just act natural, and I think you're going to have better results going out looking, and just go out camping.
Right.
Do your normal thing.
Right.
And, once they get comfortable with you that you're not out there invading their space, knocking on trees and screaming and
Right.
yelling.
Right.
I think that, when you hear these encounters, most people aren't out looking for Sasquatch when they have an encounter.
Right.
They're out there camping, they're out there fishing, they're just out there enjoying nature. And I think that they look at us and say, what are these hairless Sasquatches doing out here?
Right. Well, and I laugh because, I think that they must really be in awe of all the stuff we need to survive.
Right.
All our camping gear and our tents and our cars and our trucks, and I think they love looking at that stuff.
Right.
But I also think that they probably realize how dependent we are, and yeah. So I thank you so much for having me on. This is only the second time I've told this so publicly. So I appreciate that you let me come on and talk to you.
No,
It's good
the
for my
pleasure's all
soul.
mine.
It's always good for my soul.
Yeah. And that's what I try to provide, as a place for people to come in, tell their encounters, without judgment, and, let's just have a conversation about it. So, Amy, one more time, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your Bigfoot group?
Oh, okay. Thank you. It is on Facebook. It's Monroe County, Ohio, Bigfoot enthusiast.
Awesome. Well, Amy, I really do appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you so much.
And keep me updated if you come across anything else.
I will. And you as well.
All right. And if you've had a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. If you'd like to be on a guest on the show, contact me on Facebook if you want. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Gotta go. Once again, thanks to Elite Mounts for the new episode format. If you like this format better than the way I was doing it before, where we do the housekeeping here at the end, let me know in the comments. Make sure you're checking out all the descriptions on all my videos. Down below, you're going to find a list of all my favorite podcasts. Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptids, Chumming with the Spirits, Ghost Gossip. So many great podcasts. I like them. I think you're going to enjoy them. Give them a listen. Myths, Monsters, and Mullets is proud to be a part of Midnight Realm Radio. It's an internet radio station featuring podcasts from the paranormal to true crime. And it runs 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can find a link down below in the description. I really do appreciate all the support I've been getting over the last couple months. If you haven't yet, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Like, comment, share, tell a friend about the show. That's the only way we can continue to grow. And once again, if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share and you'd like to be on the show, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl.